Okay, so this is an optional part to the dish as well. I have some Lancashire cheese which I've just grated quite coarsely. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to make it up into small balls, and they're going to sit in the centre of our arancini, and hopefully they're going to give it a little bit of a soft cheesy centre when you cut into the middle, which will be quite a nice contrast to the rice and the rest of the ingredients that are in there. So one for each arancini. So I'm just going to force them together just to make them into a little sort of cheesy ball, if you like. Okay, and here's a couple that I've made earlier, so I've got enough there for my particular dish. And all I do is I take the cooled risotto and I'm just going to put them into the centre of a piece. Now these pieces of risotto, or the arancini, they don't all need to be virtually exactly the same size, for the obvious reasons that we've talked about in the past, for portion control and for making sure that everybody's got exactly the same size really ingredients. Okay, so you could weigh these out before you started to ball them if you wanted, which would make it obviously more accurate. But hopefully, if you're any good with your eye, or making sure all things are the same by eye, you should be able to put them together and they should all be about the same size. These are 3 that I just did earlier on, and that'll be enough for the particular dish, because if you remember I said it's an amuse-bouche dish. So an amuse-bouche is something that you have before your starter of the meal. So it's just like a sort of taster to get you going really just before the meal. So probably one of those will be enough for a portion for the amuse-bouche. Okay, so the next stage is breadcrumbing these arancini, and we're going to breadcrumb using a pane. If you remember, pane is plain flour which has been seasoned, salt, pepper, a couple of eggs cracked into a bowl, whisked up, and we've got some panko breadcrumbs. If you can't get panko breadcrumbs, just use ordinary breadcrumbs. You could put some flavour in there as well if you wanted to make a little bit more flavour, some garlic or something like that. But these panko breadcrumbs are absolutely fine as they are. And as you know, with a pane, it works very, very simply. Make sure you coat whatever you're paneing into the flour. Shake off all the excess flour and then into the egg. And then we do the same thing with the other ones. We'll get the flour stage out of the way, into the egg, and then the last thing is going to be going into the breadcrumbs. But as you know, we need to make sure that we keep one hand dry and one hand wet if we're doing lots of these, because otherwise we'll end up with breadcrumbs all over our fingers. It'll make a complete mess. Okay, so take the arancini out of the egg mix, into the breadcrumbs, make sure they're really, really well coated. Same with these other ones. To the breadcrumbs, make sure they're really, really well coated. And then once they've got a good coating, we can take them out of the breadcrumbs using the other hand, because this one's got egg all over it. And we're just going to put it onto some blue paper just to rest just for a second or two before we go over to the fryer. Now I'm aware that everybody won't have a deep fat fryer at home, so you could just pan fry them in oil if you haven't, or you could even bake them in the oven. That would do as well. Some people put them through the pane for a second time to give them a second coating, but I think one coating's plenty. Okay, so as I said, the next part is deep frying. You could shallow fry them, as I said, in just a pan of oil. We're just going to place them really, really carefully into the basket. I've got the fryer set on about 180 degrees. And lower the basket gently into the oil. And we're going to cook them probably for about 3 to 4 minutes until they're golden brown. So these arancini are ready now. Really nice golden brown colour on them, look. And hopefully that Lancashire cheese that we put in the centre, that should be almost liquid as well, which will just give it a really, really good flavour. Nice bit of blue paper just to drain off any excess fat. And then we're going to season them for one last time. Good sprinkle of salt on top, just for a bit of extra flavour.